of tomorrow. We look at what kind of investment we are doing in terms of energy. I'm not against the construction of building of these big dams, hydroelectric plants to produce energy, because I am an ecologist. I'm defending the green, and I'm very much concerned with indigenous people. No, only looking at the future then in terms of technology. This is more the same. And what is happening with, for example, solar energy? It's amazing. Brazil is gifted. Well, I don't know what God thought when, but we are really gifted in terms of solar energy. But you know who is doing research in terms of solar energy? Well, Japan, Korea, United States, and Germany, and incredibly, Scandinavia. They are doing research, very serious program of research in China. And recently, in the recent years, China put a lot of money investing in this kind of technology. And this is very clearly a way to catch up the future. How can we participate in this future? So I just brought some of this reflection. The paper is going to be perhaps more interesting, but I tried only to throw some light in some provocative. That's my idea, because I am a skeptical. So I thought it would be a good idea. So okay.
Thank you very much. Actually, you sheep were the only one that were below the time schedule, and all the others were beyond. Okay, just very fast question for you and open to the floor. For Natalia, the question is, you described a lot how the G20 is apparently important for Russia, and how Russia is considering seriously the G20. But I would like to say you mostly focus in the last meeting that was just 1 month ago. But in general terms, what do you think about the gap between the rhetoric and the behavior of Russia in relation to engaging in the G20? Because Russia is a very nationalistic power in which engagement in international groups and institutions is very limited, though sometimes the rhetoric is significant. Very interesting your definition of India as in the BRICS as the potentiality of spreading democratic imagination. To me, it's difficult to understand exactly what do you mean by your democratic imagination. But I understand it was very lively, very powerful, your message. So I would like you to elaborate a little bit on how India could spread this democratic imagination, considering that it's very limited in India. So you say the marginal movements are relevant and so on, but actually the democratic imagination has little impact in India. If we consider by many dimensions, the quality of the Indian democracy is very, very low. Way is about China, the question of trade. How is, at the same time, you put this paradox of how is China has a lot of power because of trade and is has a lot of vulnerability because of trade. It's strongly trade dependent. This is not very much emphasized in the Western literature, the dependency. Somehow because it looks like when Western powers, particularly United States, talks about retaliation in China if there is no equilibrium in the more floating of the currency, is considered more and more like just rhetoric, never have been talked, particularly close to elections, by every president in the last 10, 12 years, and nothing happened. So what do you think? Do you think, but in some moment this could become really serious for China? And my question is, do you think the new leadership is really committed, it's a difficult question to answer, of course, is really committed to a shift in the economic model in a way that allow the flotation of the currency in the near future, not gradually, of course, not somehow is floating now, but compared with the past. So, but this is the new leadership open, really committed to change. To Michael, my feeling, I am very skeptical about the scientific cooperation among the BRICS. I am in favor. This is the meeting where we are doing is in favor for that reason. But I don't think in any elite decision makers of the 5 BRICS countries, they consider as very relevant the increasing cooperation among the BRIC countries. It could be one BRIC country, bilateral, but generally they are a lot interested in increasing scientific cooperation with the United States, Europe, and Japan. And for 80, do you, you are very, very provocating in saying that it's not a group, the BRICS. Actually, I agree with you. Maybe the only difference I have with you, but I am not sure, is that the BRICS countries are very relevant. So the relation to study for each one of the BRICS countries to know about the other is very relevant. Not because the BRICS is a consistent coalition. I don't think it is, and I am more skeptical than you. I don't think it has a future of becoming consistent, okay? And for many, many reasons in terms of economic competition and geopolitical reasons, not among the 5. So, the question is, why do you think it could become a group in the future? Those are the 5 questions, but you will answer after the opening the floor. So, first you can.
Thank you for very interesting presentations at the end of a very long day. My first question is for Michael, and I thought your point about the African states really needing to extract more resources from their FDI was a very good point. You talked about the resource nationalism as one way that I guess they're starting to do that. I wonder if that doesn't conflict a bit, though, with one of the other things that you had talked about earlier in the talk as a positive thing about the African countries. You mentioned how the ease of doing business is considered to be so much higher in the African countries than in many of the BRICS. And I wonder if they start to try to extract more resources from their own natural resources, from the FDI, if that ease of doing business doesn't necessarily have to go down a bit. For Shiv, you should have been at our table at lunch, because actually at our table at lunch, we were talking about differential crime patterns in the countries in that South African stab, while Brazilians shoot, and talking about the anthropology of that. So we did have a conversation about that. But I also had a comment on your presentation, which is, I think your vision of the many ideas is a very interesting and compelling one, but you do present it in its ideal form as essentially flat. And I wonder, ideas as they come up, they seem to be much, ideas gain prominence and they resist other ideas. And I think actually any world that has 50,000 ideas is not a flat world of ideas probably, but has more and less prominent ones, 50,000 versions of rice, and then along comes GM rice. You know, I think all of your diversity might be overlooking the fact that there are hierarchies that arise very consistently.
Okay, Sergio.
If I may, I would get inspiration from Haiti, Professor Sato. And the question would be just one question for all the participants. I think that the BRICS are a group, but perhaps they are not a bloc. And the question then would be if this group will ever become a bloc.
Good afternoon, my name is Elisio, I'm Portuguese. I'd like to put one question for everybody, and I'm sorry for not listening to all of you. I arrived a little bit late. And the question is about, well, BRICS are a category of countries considered in an economic growth dynamic and the expectations of becoming more and more important in the next future. I would question what you think about this still dominant model of growth, of economic growth, which is not considering enough questions like sustainability, development, environment, natural resources, ecology. So
this will be the subject of tomorrow panel.
Okay. Okay, so I'll be here tomorrow. So anyway, human rights. I would like to question, especially thinking about China and thinking about Russia, human rights, democracy. Is corruption really in collapsing democracy? Is it really as